Today's practice is going to be a body-centered practice. Um, this is a practice that I learned early on in my trainings, and sometimes in the practices, what we do is we pay very specific attention to one thing, and in doing that, it's sort of like that one thing becomes everything. Um, and through that sort of hyper focused attention, there becomes a oneness that emerges from that. Sometimes in our practices, we don't really focus our attention on anything. We try to rest our attention in that realm of pure awareness, what we would call it, and just allow what appears to appear. Um, and Each can be valuable, each can be useful, depending on where you are in your practice or what you want to do. I actually find it kind of fun sometimes to bring in different practices. Like when I go into my formal practice, sort of ask myself, oh, what should we do today? And many times that's just be present. Other times it's, oh, let's do a mantra. Let's do a loving kindness practice. Let's do gratitude. Let's do something like that. It just kind of spontaneously appears, and then I go into that practice, and I don't hold on to it. If that changes, then it changes, and that's it. But this is a practice that is body oriented, so it's less sort of mental oriented. Let's say with like the repetition of a word, sound, phrase, but it is a practice of directing your attention. So there is this capacity of directing your attention to a very specific point in your body. And I hope even that, right, at this point, some of the language that we're using should make sense. In terms of, even directing your attention. For instance, if I ask you to, direct your attention to what you're smelling, you can do that. If I ask you to direct your attention to what you're seeing, you can do that. If I ask you to direct your attention to your left hand, you should be able to do that. And so there's this capacity, right, of you having control of where you're directing your attention to. That's sort of intro. In my world, it's sort of like intro 101, learning how to direct your attention. Some people don't even recognize that they can direct their attention, and their attention is directed by whatever's appearing in their attention, and they don't recognize that they have any control of it. But just something as easy as, pay attention to your feet versus, pay attention to your hands. There's something that you're doing, right? Whatever that something is, that is you controlling your attention. And so, even that practice, for instance, of paying attention to what you're seeing, pay attention to what you're hearing, pay attention to what you're smelling, pay attention to what you're tasting, paying attention to what you're sensing. All those are really good practices because it kind of tunes into the different sort of antenna or sensory organs that we have that are perceiving that sensation. And then there's different sort of realms of that. If you are interested in navigating that further, on my YouTube channel, there is something called the Awakening Awareness Program, and we go into very subtle senses, very subtle sensations, sort of the ability of interoception, almost as if you're trying to pay attention to a sensation from the perspective of the bone in your hand, for instance, or the tissue in your hand, or the fluid in your hand. And that can be, it can be kind of a fun journey. And so by now, right, you should have this capacity of being able to control and direct your attention based on what you want to pay attention to. Okay. And sometimes what happens when we direct our attention to something very, very, very specific. We did an exercise before where we paid attention to, you know, the slightest movement of any joint, like as if you're paying attention to the movement of the hand. I'm moving my finger, but you can't see I'm moving my finger, but I feel movement in my finger and what that actually is. And we did that. And when you pay attention to something so intensely, what happens is that one intense, it's sort of like the laser focus of your attention is so laser focused that that specific one thing becomes everything. That experience of paying attention to a hyper focused object instantaneously dissolves, and it's sort of, you're in this like oneness. This can happen, which is why sometimes paying attention to a very specific thing is a very good practice. It can also help kind of train the brain, because oftentimes our mind is scattered and wandering and going everywhere. This is a really good way of sort of starting to train the brain and saying, okay, come in here, come back to this, come back to this, come back to this, come back to this, come back to this. And we combine this focused attention with a sensation in the body. This can be a very good practice, for instance, that you can do to fall asleep. It can be a very good practice that you can do, for instance, if you're having a conversation with somebody and you're really angry, or if you're feeling really stressed by somebody else, you can actually pay attention to something in your body as a sense. You can do this, for instance, while you're waiting in line at the grocery store. You can do this anywhere. But it's a really good way of kind of calming the body and the nervous system. And even allowing areas of the body that feel tense or that may have areas of discomfort or pain actually relax a little bit. And so it's a really good resource to have. Because it can be used in sort of a multitude of settings, and has many applications. If you work with people too, this is actually something that you can do prior to working with people. So this is something that, for instance, early on in my career, when patients were yelling at me because I wasn't prescribing their medications for them because they had cocaine in their urine or whatever it might be, that I would do this practice. And it just helped me kind of bring my energy down into my body and ground myself, so my energy wouldn't sort of explode out of my head, let's say, and yell back at them, or whatever it is that would come up. And just that word, for instance, grounding. I know we've talked about this in the past, but a lot of us can be very, very mental, ethereal. We can disassociate from our bodies quite quickly. And so having some sort of exercise that brings us back into our body with a sense can be very powerful, or may get us out of our mind, can also be very powerful. Now there's a ton out there, right? In terms of grounding practices, there's an earthing movement. There are things that you can buy that you can put your feet in to ground yourself. People go out and walk in nature barefoot, put your feet under the soil, feel roots of the trees, um, put rocks or stones in their pockets, lay on the earth, lay on the soil, whatever it might be. So there's a number of sort of practices out there that help people ground or stay embodied. And this is one of those things that I like because, well, you don't need anything and you can do it wherever you are. So you don't need to go and find nature or go and buy something that you can, it's like, oh, I need to buy this. I try to get rid of everything that I need to buy. It's like, I don't need to buy that. Don't need to buy that because I'm sort of a firm believer that it's all within me. Um, and, uh, and so, um, so this is a bit of a grounding practice. We're using our attention and a sense in the body, but also um, working on any discomforts that may arise in the body as well, and having this sort of be a practice that works with that. Okay. So I'm going to guide you to it or through it. Uh, the so I'm going to guide you to it. In the practice, um, I'm going to guide you to an area in your body that might not feel so good. And when I guide you to that area, again, anytime we do these practices, it's always good to not, if you can, right, if you find an area that you feel like you can work with, as opposed to maybe, if you're having a severe migraine right now, maybe that's not the best area to kind of focus on. If you want to, go ahead. If you feel like, hey, I'm gonna try it out, go ahead. But usually in the practices, finding something that might be like a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 discomfort as opposed to an 8, 9, or 10 is good. And doing the practice on that. So when I do guide your attention to finding an area in your body that might have a 3, 4, 5 discomfort, doing that. If you don't have any area in your body, then just find a different area in your body to focus on and see what happens as we do this. See what happens as we do this exercise. Okay. Okay, so let's find a comfortable posture. A posture we feel relaxed yet alert. Closing your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. If not, having a soft downward gaze. And taking 2 or 3 deep breaths. And with each inhale, bringing in the present moment. And with each exhale, allowing any stress or tension be released from your body if you can, even if it's just the intention of releasing any stress or tension, and allowing yourself as best you can to be here now. And then breathing regularly and bringing your attention to your anchor or your resource, a place you direct your attention to that is safer. This can be the sensation of your breath. It could be a mantra, a repetition of a word, sound, or phrase. It could be an emotion, a felt sense in the body. It might be pure awareness. Whatever it is that you feel you can direct your attention to or rest your attention. And as your mind wanders, you come back to your anchor or resource over and over and over again. And now directing your attention to your feet, the soles of your feet, and paying very specific attention to the contact the soles of your feet are making with whatever surface they're on. Or the sensation you feel on the surface of your feet. Is it the same on the left and the right foot? What do you notice as a sensation as you pay very specific attention to the soles of your feet? What sort of senses do you notice? Is it the same on the right and left? Is there any pressure? Is the contact your feet are making with the surface the same at the balls of your feet or the heels? And just noticing it. Allowing all the sensory information that is coming from your feet to be fully processed in this moment, moment by moment. Paying attention to your toes on both feet. Noticing the differences or similarities between the right and the left. Do you feel any temperature? Any numbness, tingling, vibration? Do your feet feel alive or dead? Really paying attention to how your feet are making contact with whatever surface they're on. And all the sensory information that you're receiving from your feet right now. As if you're taking a diary, a log. What do you notice And as your mind wanders from your feet, bringing your attention back to your feet, and just noticing the sensations coming from your feet moment by moment, moment by moment. Notice what happens. And now direct your attention to a different body part. A body part where there might be some discomfort, some achiness, something that's 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 10. Not something too intense, unless you feel comfortable going to that intensity. And paying attention to that body part. What does that feel like for you as a sensation? Can you localize it? Can you draw a border around it? Is the border defined or amorphous? And again, collecting all the sensory information from this other body part that might feel a little unpleasant. And as you're just paying attention to this body part, no desire to change anything about it. There's no judgment about it. There's no good or bad. Just simply noticing the sensations. Notice what happens, if anything. Do you notice any tightening or expanding? Is the body part constricting, pulsating, or loosening? Is there a color or sound associated with this body part? Just being aware. And now Bringing your sensation back to your feet. Noticing the contact your feet are making with the floor or whatever surface they're on. Noticing any sensation coming from the feet, from the soles of your feet, on the right and the left, from anything you're wearing on your feet, like socks or shoes or sandals or slippers. Noticing how the floor feels under your feet. And if your mind wanders, coming back to your feet, purely as a sensation, what information are your feet sending you right now? Simply noticing that. No need to change anything. No desire for it to want to be different. This is the moment. Right here. Right now. And now directing your attention back to that same body part that you paid attention to before. What do you notice now? Purely as a sensation. Has anything changed or has it stayed exactly the same? Just noticing the sensation, being curious about it. Now directing your attention back to your feet. Noticing the sensation coming from your feet. Paying very specific attention to the sensory impulses coming from your feet in this moment. Now going back to that body part, directing your attention back to the body part. And notice what sensations appear for you now. Back to your feet. Directing your attention back to your feet. Directing your attention back to the body part. And now, in your field of attention, can you expand the scope of your attention to hold both sensations at once? Your feet and the other body part. Allowing both sensations at once, paying attention to them equally. And seeing if you can allow all sensations from your body into your scope of attention. Fully embodied, fully present, right here, right now. And as we bring this meditation to a close today, just recognizing how you may incorporate this practice into your life, if at all. Taking a few moments to sending yourself love and gratitude for coming today to do this practice. Sending your whole body appreciation. And now taking 2 or 3 deep breaths. Opening your eyes if your eyes were closed. Reorienting yourself to your room and surroundings. Taking in the colors of the walls. Stretching or moving if you feel like you need to stretch. And just taking a moment to reflect on your practice today.